Today I'm going to try to draw this view over Sighnaghi, Georgia, and this one was a little bit more complicated than I'm used to. It's more reminiscent of, let's say, the bench from the other day than something like yesterday's monastery. There's a lot of stuff here, and it's stuff that I'm unaccustomed to. So let's see how it goes. But first, if you're new here or old, that's fine too, subscribe to the channel. The sooner you do, the sooner, the better. It would be really awesome and great and preferred, actually, if you'd go ahead and finally just subscribe. So do that. Okay, so as you can see, the umbrellas are the first thing to hit the paper, and I stand by that decision. They're pretty front and center, the kind of in the way, and they're large. So they make for a nice starting point, anchoring me to this composition. So I'm glad this is where I kick things off. However, as I was drawing the umbrellas, I had this sneaking suspicion that they would be the simplest parts of this scene, and everything else was about to get a whole lot harder. And I was right. That did happen. I don't think this was a crash and burn failure by any means. I think it's fine. But this early stage of the drawing was not representative of what was coming down the pike. Broadly speaking, as I alluded to in the beginning, this drawing was about stuff, like disparate things that I just had to figure out on the fly, combined with this peculiar perspective. So I'm set up on this elevated walkway across the street, probably 10 feet up or something like that. So I'm looking down at the scene, but not dramatically so. I'm up here primarily because I didn't want to be sitting on the edge of the street, which is this treacherous little corner where cars love to aggressively swing through. But also, I wanted the tower and the landscape in the background to be their own things. From below, the background is just a layer directly behind and between the umbrellas and the ground, and I didn't love that. From up here, the background gets its own slice of the composition. Unfortunately, from this vantage point, the people and the chairs and all that do not. They've all become this swirling mass of, I'll say it again, stuff. They're also moving around, coming and going, so very little stayed put long enough for me to get a solid grasp on how things should look. So a lot of this area ends up as this weird amalgamation of things that I don't really understand, but I try my best. And that brings me to something I wrote down immediately after finishing today's drawing. I wrote, kind of cryptically, the life in chairs and people and human things. Then I forgot about it. So when I sat down to record this voiceover, I remembered that I'd written something down. So I went to check and I read it. And I didn't really understand. It was nonsense. But then I tried to put myself back into this environment, back into my drawing mindset, and I recalled what I was getting at least for the most part. So in this area, the one full of stuff, like down at the bottom, there are things like chairs and tables, like glasses and silverware, like people and their bodies and their clothes, big, etc. You get the point. Those things have life to them. Obviously the people literally so, but the other things, the objects, the stuff, it's all made for people to use and manipulate, and at least seen from the perspective of someone drawing it, to animate. These inanimate things become alive, in a sense, as I watch them shift and evolve over 15 minutes or so. Like when people pull chairs around or move the table, you get it. Compare that to the tower in the background, which is locked in eternal stasis, at least until it's renovated or destroyed or something. The tower, save for changing lighting conditions, is the perfect subject to draw. It stands still, never changing its posture or expression, and maybe that's why so often I'm choosing such subjects as my references. It takes away the difficulty of mentally capturing a moment or a series of moments among an infinite flow of them. The people and the stuff they use, the stuff that's specifically made for them to use, have this animated flowing life to them. It's beautiful and magical, and God, is it difficult to manage. So it's not so much the particular orientations of this stuff or their unique shapes or any of that, although those also play a role and make this more difficult. But the movement, that's the hard part, the change. I draw this type of thing so rarely that it always surprises me when I try it. It's so different from what I usually choose that it makes me feel like it's a completely different practice. And I guess, in a sense, it kind of is. Anyway, I thought that was interesting enough to vaguely write it down. I guess the best way forward, the best way to understand it would be to select more similar references, which is what I always say about everything, but that's the truth. With all of that, with stuff and animation in mind, I failed at communicating that feeling on paper. The area that hosts the humans and their human things is sparse and rigid, whereas the reference is quite dense and amorphous. Considering I have such limited exposure to such things, or at least limited experience, I think that's okay. I didn't try to focus too intently on getting any one thing correct, but instead I tried to quickly and as efficiently as possible note people's positions and gestures, certain orientations, stuff like that, and try to rapidly get them down. I knew I could easily get bogged down in this central area, so I decided to just not. So, as you can see, even though there's a sparseness to this drawing, I did attempt to include some things that weren't actually there in an attempt to, liven it up. There are some potted plants, some extra foliage, more clouds in the sky, and that was probably a good idea. I'm not crazy about this one by any means, but all things considered, I'm not unhappy with it either. So what do you think? Is there anything simple that stands out to you that would have made this obviously better? Let me know. Also, if you're enjoying these videos, subscribe to the channel and like the video if you liked it. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.